Welcome, my galactic brothers and sisters, to another episode of Electrical Theology, Esoteric Life Coaching. I am your galactic pastor. Just a funny name I gave myself. This is a show that shares esoteric knowledge, all for the purpose of gaining enlightenment. And enlightenment's a broad term, but it also will get more specific as we get on, because next week, starting Monday, I'm going to change my whole format. And then each day will be given a specific class. So I'm going to be starting classes on the mediumship, tarot, manifesting, and a few of these other things, but from the esoteric, ionic position or perception or perspective. All right? But if you're new to this channel, this is your first time viewing, appreciate you showing up. It is about the esoteric, supernatural, metaphysical, all that good stuff, dimensional work. About getting in touch within yourself so you can understand not only yourself, but then be able to reflect and understand others and things outside of you. Right? And we're going to do this by unfolding the moment with an undefended heart. What does that mean, guys? It means in order to receive anything from the universe, or to receive anything from yourself, then you're going to have to open your heart. And it has to be undefended. If it's defended, nothing can come in. Put a fence around your house, can something come in? No. Oh yeah, they can jump over, sure, but you get my point. So if we put a defense around our heart, then we're telling ourselves we don't want to receive. So if you're not receiving what you're trying to transmit, what you're praying for, whatever this may be, and you're not receiving, and this is why you're defending the heart. So the heart has to be open, and you have to be willing to receive it and know that you are worth it. And that's what our last few classes have been on, or sermons have been on, is about you are worth it. You are worthy. Worthy is worth. Self-worth, also under self-worth, is self-esteem, self-conceptualization, self-identity, all this self-stuff, right? If you're into chakras, it's third chakra stuff. I'm not going to go into that. Chakras just arc to me. It's just an arcing of ions, so I understand the ancient explanation of it and the 7 systems of the human body and beyond, but I keep it simple because for me everything's electrical. And that's basically... I took responsibility for my thoughts, actions, and emotions, which means I don't subscribe to anyone else's thoughts in this world. I can temporarily subscribe and listen to those and integrate what works for me at that time and discard the rest, or maybe put on the back burner until another time. But my information is my information. It's how I get along in this world. And it's how I can manifest, communicate, understand with principalities, deities, dimensionals, extraterrestrials, off-worlders. We can give them a million names, guys, but basically, again, if you can understand how to communicate with yourself, if you know how your cells communicate within your body and your brain with your heart and all this other stuff, then you understand how to take responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and emotions. So then we take those thoughts, add them with the heart, and then we have a completion. We have a whole. And therefore, we have self-worth, right? That's what this class is, and I appreciate you showing up. If it's something you're interested in, keep watching. Hang in there with me, and maybe you'll get something out of it. So recently, we've been talking about the present state to desired state. And watch the last couple videos. Not the one before. That was sort of a... gratitude, which helps with all this. We'll go with the 2 videos and 3 videos ago, and it'll get you more on the present state to current state, or the current state to desired state. And that means right now the state is your state of mind, for those who don't know. Your state of mind and the state that your heart's in. And those states are stations, your stated ions. How are you stating yourself to the world, to yourself, to everyone else? And for me, it's just being authentic. Again, not subscribing to anyone else's information but my own, and then just presenting me to the world. Right? I'm not responsible for anyone else's emotions, actions, or any of that stuff, right? Other than my own. Now, if I'm responsible for my own, then those around me will be responsible for themselves. Right? And if we want to become better communicators, then we have to understand how to bridge the gap of where we're not a good communicator. So in order to be a good communicator, we got to understand desired state, and present state to desired state. The present state is broad. Right? We a lot of times don't know what we want because we don't know what we don't know, and we're confused and we're lost. All these type terms, or we want to make a change, but we don't know how. We don't know the first steps. Well, that's present state, and it's a very broad state. And some of you may have specific at this point, and that's great. But we need to go. But do you have the desired state? If not, then you haven't done the specific part yet. So broad to specific is the same as present state to desired state, but we can also interchange the broad to the specific in many, many topics and thoughts. Most of the time when we're trying to figure something out, it's because we have to start off with a broad understanding of what's going on. And then step by step by step, we can narrow in or get more specific. If we don't know what's happening in our life, then we can say, all right, how come this is happening? Why? Right? How so? Specifically, why? See, I can start breaking it down more specifically, right? I can say, okay, a conversation would go of a client talking to me. I'm like, okay, how so? How is that so? And they'll give me their explanation. I said, well, specifically, can you tell me? So in between that bridge between broad and specific, I can say, well, how so? How's that, how so? And how's that serving you? Right? And then if it is serving you or if it isn't serving you, why specifically? So we can get to the specifics by breaking and reframing everything. It makes sense? All right, so that state in between is what a lot of people feel is crisis. Right? The bigger the gap between present state and desired state, or broad to specific, it puts us in a state of crisis. We have a few things just to understand here. So transitioning this crisis. How do we transition it? Again, transition the ion, right? Transient ion. Right? We're just moving. We have old ions, and we need to tap into the universe or our internal self, and then be able to activate new energy, right? We cannot activate a new outcome with old energy. We have to upgrade it. And how we're going to upgrade it? By reevaluating yourself. Value your self-worth. Get it? All right, so how you leave is how you'll enter. What do we mean by that? What do I mean by that? I'm going to tell you. All right? When exiting one attached identity and moving into another. So that means that if I'm leaving a relationship, the way I leave that relationship is exactly how I'll enter another one. Why? Because you didn't change anything, you just left it. If you have problems in one state and you're like, oh, I'm just going to move to another state, you'll end up showing up there again. What do I mean? Because you're you. Wherever you are, there you are. It doesn't matter that you're changing dirt or borders. Right? If you're still you, you're still going to repeat the same self-worth processes of thinking or emotions. If you haven't taken responsibility for any of those actions, thoughts, or emotions, then they're just going to repeat. So your core values plus priorities equal this crisis. Because if you have low core values and you want to add some priorities that you don't have yet, that desired state, then it's going to create a crisis. So again, leaving one relationship, going to another one, right? From one job to another. If you got fired from one job and you go to a new job and you interview for that job, and they're like, well, why did you leave the last one? Oh, the boss was an asshole. Right? You're bringing that same energy, and it's your perspective because you're blaming someone for whatever reason. You need to blame that person instead of looking inside yourself and going, how am I an asshole? Make sense? So we want to make sure that we clear whatever energy we have, right? Whatever debt you have. Debt is just a lack of new energy. And if you're still bringing old energy, debt, into new energy, then you're just going to repeat the same debt, right? And this goes with finances, relationships, whatever. If you don't clear up why it occurred, right? We're not looking at blame or fault. We're just looking at saying, okay, this didn't work, so I want to reevaluate. Or it did work, and I'm done with it. Let me reevaluate what I want to do next. Right? We can reevaluate. So this process of getting from to specific or present to desired state is we have to break down, this is the bridge we have to gap. Make sense? And so parents with empty nesters is another thing I see with a lot of clients. Their kids went off to college, whatever this may be. Or the kid just ran from home because they didn't want to be at home, and you're blaming the kids and didn't want to change your ways, so the kid left, right? And then you want to always whine because your kids don't love you. Well, you got to look at yourself and go, okay, why? Right? But let's not get too heavy. Let's just go with a parent and empty nest, right? So the way you cared for that nest, if you go and do what you want now, are you going to change the way you used to parent or run that household or run the kids, if you will? Manage the kids. Are you going to manage your next job the same way, or do you have to reevaluate how you're going to run things? Because if you go back into corporate America, yes, some of those things that were great management skills for your kids may translate over to the job, but if you're trying to bring in systems that were only for the kids, but it's not going to work in corporate America, then you're going to have to reevaluate that to change. You're going to have to re-enculturate, right? And so change happens so we can grow. So why are we presented with all these situations in life, especially now? And again, it's not really different than any other time. People want to say, oh my God, the world's really going hell in a handbasket. Well, I brought this up before, that the world's always changing. Because we have more social media, it just seems to be more exacerbated that things are even worse than ever. Well, if we had social media during World War II or World War I or the Civil War or any other world wars, right? We had social media. How would you think we would take this if we had it during the Depression in the 1920s and 30s, right? Or the fall of Rome? Right? Would social media make it different? Because each one of these also had new technology. They also had new diseases. They also had new civil unrest. They also had financial crashes. This time is no different than any other time. What's different is your perspective about what's going on. Right? And if you have low values, then you're going to see everything from a low value perspective. And if you want to get out of this low value, you have to upgrade your value by bringing in new words like we use: consistency, congruency, integrity, perseverance. These words that we use, you got to come up with some words. And I have a video of a whole list of words that you can adopt into your own world or adapt to your own emotions. All right? So in order to create inner peace, fulfillment, passion, contentment, etc., you have to be willing to go through the growth pains. Right? If you want this new passion, if you want new commitment, if you want new relationships, if you want more money, right, or less responsibilities or more responsibility, whatever this is for you that you don't have in the present state that you're asking the desired state to have, then we're going to take this broad approach and then narrow it down to specific. And narrowing it down is taking these specific steps by embracing new core values. Right? Come up with 4 core values and start living by those, breathing those, sharing those. And not just talking, but walk your walk. Right? Not everyone's going to understand when you present them with information, right, of how things are going to be or what's going to happen in the future. And some of them, even when this stuff happens, as you said it was going to happen, be it economical, social, whatever this may be, economically, then all of a sudden a crash happens and now they're all coming at you, even after you've told them that this is going to happen, right? They didn't change the core value if they have a negative outcome or negative experience, but all this is for growth, right? This is part of your growth. When you say, I want a desired state, I want something different, you just put into the process, you just put in an initiated movement of energy from not only within but from the cosmos. And so that energy starts moving. And what it's going to initially move into your consciousness from the subconscious is your old value system. And this old value system is what's going to ask you, do you still want me around or do you want to upgrade? And then in that very moment, that's how you're going to bridge the gap. And if you don't take a step forward, if you will, if you don't broaden your perspectives, then you'll repeat the same cycle until you finally repeated it enough to where you're like really motivated and done with it. All right? So self-awareness, self-esteem, all that good stuff. Everything's under self-worth. And then during this transitional crisis, it brings us to our desired or conceptual state. Right? So this is sort of the path that we're taking. This is the gap. This is the bridge. The transitional crisis is that gap. And how do we transit those ions? By bringing in new ions. That's the bridge builder. All right? That making sense to you guys? Transmitting, receiving. All right, so how are we going to get this to move, right? Motivational value. Are you more motivated to stay the same or have a new movement in your life? A new relationship, new income, right? Whatever this health, wealth, and love is for you, right? Are you willing to transition out of security into sovereignty? Right? Security is I have to work this job 40 hours a week that I hate, and I have to take all these drugs because I'm depressed, and I have anxiety, and I can't sleep. I got to take sleeping pills. I got to do all this stuff, right? But you get a paycheck. You get a 401k, right? None of that's secure. That's an illusion if you think it's secure. At any moment, the country can get shut down, right? Your body, because of the health, because of the stress, can break down. Then you don't have that job, right? The world's going to keep turning without you. And so the security is a false illusion, almost delusional, right? It's a false sense of security because there's nothing secure. We can get hit by a meteor, right? Everyone has an expiration date in this shell that you're in now. And so in that meantime, that sovereignty is self, is living from the self, not selfish, not even selfless. It's just about living from your perspective and from your core values. And once you open up to your core values, then it's going to attract electromagnetically is like energy. Make sense? So sovereignty is a state of perception, same as security, right? So security is a perception, sovereignty, but which perception do you much rather live with? So for me, sovereignty is self-identifying, right? I don't need anyone else's labeling system. I'm me. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know any more than that I'm me. Make sense? I don't need to confuse other people, right, with a whole bunch of labels and identities. I'm just me, right? Anything else is complicated for me. Right? I'm about simplicity. And so I like the easiest perceptions, right? When someone says, "Who are you?" I say, "I'm me." Well, I get that, but what is it? No, I'm me. I'm just me. What do you want to know about me? Now we can have a conversation. Now we can converse with our verses and ions. Conversation versus the ions. Make sense? Self-worth connects and determines intrinsic value within your esoteric. So your intrinsic value, there's extrinsic, which is the outer value of you, your money, your health, your wealth, but the intrinsic value is your soul and spirit. Right? And so it's the soul and spirit that produces the energy from the God realm, from the hierarchy and the Shambhala, and this realm and that realm. Right? It's the intrinsic value that brings forth and through you into the extrinsic value. And so the intrinsic value is the internal value. It's not labeled or compared to anything outside world. Your intrinsic value is what I choose for myself. It is a God value. It's an exponential value. It's an amplified value. All right? Is your self-worth valued more today than yesterday? So each day I wake up, I'm asking myself, is my value system still valuable? Or is it time to re-evaluate those ions as I have them coming in? Right? Am I bridging the gap? Do I have my desired state? No, not every day I do not have my desired state. But I put into motion by re-evaluating my core values. Is that core value? Do I need to add a core value? Right? I run 3 or 4 of them out all the time, but is it time to add a new one? Well, if I add a new one, then that's going to amplify, so then I have to be ready to receive, right, that transition, which can be called a crisis, which means I choose to shut down one business and go through the transition of shutting it down. It's shut down, and now I open up a new one. See what I'm saying? So there's that transition crisis. Crisis could be fun or it can be stressful. That's your perception, because who's creating the thoughts about the crisis? Right? Crisis does have that connotation of urgency or immediacy or stress, right? But this is why you're going through what you're going through, is to grow. Right? We're going to grow, so we're going to add value. So add another value or core value, right? So I have congruency, consistency, integrity, perseverance. Well, maybe I want to add acceptance. Maybe I want to be more accepting of myself. And in the process, I can be more accepting of other people. Make sense? All right, guys. And so here's the key one: is identity is not fixed, right? Whoever you think you are in this very moment, your present state can always be changed. Now, there's core values, intrinsic core values, or soul values, that in one essence don't really change. They can be upgraded, but they don't really change. You came in as an E, you can change it and go to E sharp, E flat. And if you do enough work here, then you can actually go up to F, sharp or flat, right? I'm just using the piano scale, so you go from sharp to flat, sharp to flat. And my identity, however, is not fixed. I can change, is my point. I can upgrade it. I can expand it, right? Just like my car. If my car's not working for me anymore, I can expand it. I can go electric. I can go smaller. I can go bigger, right? Whatever it is I'm choosing to do, and how does the next manifestation fit me, right? Does it align with my new value system, my new creation, my new innovations, my new thoughts, emotions, and actions? So finally, if you don't feel free, it's because you haven't been making freeing will choices, right? Or making free choices, right? Your choices that you're making, in one sense, are constricted, right? In the last couple of videos, we talked about taking the cap off the jar and just allowing your imagination to run wild, right? So same thing with your free will. Again, will is will, wisdom, action. But if you don't have the wisdom because you're still in debt or still in a less than valuable state mind, then you're not able to make free will choices. You're making enslaved choices, constricted choices, limited choices, right? So again, if you don't have if you're not using your free will, if you're trading security for sovereignty, then you're not free, right? You've chosen to constrain yourself under someone else's world, right? So if you don't feel free, it's because you're not making free choices, right? And what, right now, imagine if all your freedom was taken away. Imagine being in the 1950s, 60s, during any of these wars and in concentration camps, and you were forced into one of these concentration camps. What if martial law were to come in right now and then come into your house and say, we're taking all your supplies? What if your freedom was taken away? How would you feel? Right? So whatever that feeling is for you, imagine that that's who you are in your present state if you're choosing a desired state but you don't have it yet. If you're trading your security for sovereignty. And so it's about getting in touch with that feeling of being constrained, constricted, less than, and then put in new core values, right? This is going to help bridge that gap again. These steps are taking you from the broad to the specific and get a specific outcome, right? Remember that the past is ego. If you're living in the past because you're afraid and you're settling for a constricted job that you hate or a relationship that's not working, that's you taking your freedom away. And that's why you don't see another outcome, is because you're constricted and you can't see that outcome because you haven't opened up to it, right? And we talked about Roosevelt, I think it was yesterday, said that if you're just whining, if you're whining about a problem without a solution, then you're just a whiner, right? Something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And then when one stays attached to the past, then they cannot be free. So if you're still in a past traditional system or traditional thought or someone else's thought, then you're not free. And again, this is neither good nor bad. You just have to identify and go, okay, I am enslaved, which is a label, And you can change that label and say, okay, I'm just choosing to live this way. And then acceptance, right? I'm bringing in that new word acceptance. So you have to accept, love, and appreciate that you are there, and have gratitude that you have all that. Don't bitch about it. If you're choosing a 9 to 5, that's awesome, right? But gratitude, right? What all came together for you to have that space, to have that job, to trade your labor for some money, right? Honor and appreciate that process. Right? If you can't, then you're choosing not to be appreciated in your own self, in your own life, and those around you. And then next week, we're going to be changing the schedule around. And we're going to get back into this chart, because if you're feeling that you're limited in what you can do, you're going to have desperation. And if you're desperation, you're not open to receiving until you're motivated enough, right? Until you instigate that. But if you're hesitating to make that move, then it's just going to turn into frustration, which then leads you into perceiving the ions in a negative or low value system. Again, we're going to get into that because we can plug and play any situation you're going in here, use the words and plug those words in here, know exactly what's about to happen. If you don't, know what's behind you, know what's ahead of you, and know what's 3 octaves ahead or in your future, as we call it. Right? And that's what we'll talk about. But just real quick, next week, Monday, I'm going to give you an overall briefing of how I'm changing everything up. So tune in to Monday, and I'll give you the new layout, new schedule, new classes. We're going to have tarot, manifestation, a few other things that will help you along the way to give you some tools along your journey, right? Along your quest for new ions, right? Well, that'll about do it for today, guys. I appreciate you hanging out. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just leave those below in the comment, and I'll get back with you on that. And until next time, love each and every one of you, and look forward to seeing you next time.